Everyone believes that working harder will make them rich, but that's the trap that no one talks about. Hi, I'm Charlie Invest. On this channel, we talk about how money really works and how to make systems work for you. If you want to stop trading time for money, sign up. A lot of individuals think that the best way to make money is to work harder. From a young age, hard work is seen as the best quality. People often praise working late, pushing through tiredness, and giving up personal time as signs of ambition and self-control. Effort feels right, morally right, and, most importantly, it can be measured. When we put in longer hours at work, we can see the results right away. Jobs are done, projects are done, and we make money in the short term. This produces a psychological bias that makes people think that hard labor is a reward in and of itself, regardless of the systems that the job is done in. The issue is that this way of thinking promotes a transactional way of thinking where time is traded directly for money and the structural realities of financial systems are mostly ignored. People typically think that hard work will always lead to success, but that's not always the case. The first step to changing how we think about money, work, and long-term financial growth is to understand this difference. Modern financial systems are set up to encourage ownership, leverage, and long-term participation instead of doing the same thing again and over again. People that only make money from their jobs labor in linear systems, where each extra hour of work yields less and less benefit. Capital can grow on its own in ways that are much greater than what even the toughest worker can do. This is different from labor, which is limited by time and energy. Understanding this structural restriction is important to understanding why traditional conceptions of hard work don't always lead to proportional results. Wealth accumulation is not merely an indicator of work. It is contingent upon one's standing within these institutions. Without leverage or assets that make money on their own, even hard work that is consistent and disciplined will eventually stop working. This structural ceiling explains why people who seem equally capable and hardworking end up with very diverse financial results over time. Think about a situation where two people have the same talents, education, and hours of work. Both of them start in similar jobs, working 10 hours a day and putting in a lot of effort. The first person decides to use some of their money to buy assets, invest in enterprises, or construct financial instruments that make money without doing anything. They think on long-term growth because they know that wealth grows over time, not overnight. The second person, on the other hand, is just as dedicated and hardworking, but they just care about making as much money as possible right away. They spend more on things that make their lives better, enjoy short-term pleasures, and don't put their money into things that could increase over time. The distinction between these two pathways becomes clear decades later. The first individual sees their wealth grow and their financial freedom grow, even if they don't have to work very hard every day. The second person, even when they work the same amount or more, is nonetheless financially limited because they only make money from job. This situation shows that effort alone is not enough when it is not in line with the systems that create exponential results. Behavioral tendencies make this influence more stronger. Humans are trained to favor effort over strategic positioning because effort gives them rapid feedback, finishing tasks, reaching daily goals, and showing that you are working hard gives you a real sense of control over what happens in your life. On the other hand, ownership and leverage work quietly in the background. Their effects take time to show up, and they build up over months and years in ways that aren't always clear right away. This delay makes people feel like they're not making progress, even though they are. The long-term usefulness of their work may be limited unless they take strategic steps and make sure their actions are in line with the system. To reconsider existing employment paradigms and use techniques that put long-term financial gain ahead of short-term pleasure, it is important to understand this time gap. People are taught from a young age that working more is good, and success stories generally focus on determination and discipline as the main reasons for success. People in society praise those who go above and above, celebrate those who do more than expected, and hardly ever talk about the importance of patience, timing, or working with the system. This reinforcement makes people think that being busy means making progress, which is a cognitive trap. Because of this, people typically focus on measurable effort instead of strategic positioning, missing the principles and incentives that lead to financial success. This creates a cycle where work is a measure of who you are and how much you are worth, but it doesn't have much of an effect on your finances when you don't own or leverage it. The main point of this first part is that hard work feels good and gives you instant mental satisfaction, but it doesn't always lead to long-term financial gain. It's important to see the difference between effort and results that are in line with the system. Hard work is important, but it needs to be combined with knowing how to use structural incentives, leverage assets, and focus on involvement that builds over time. Recognizing this difference is the first step in finding ways to create long-term wealth, which means moving away from work that only creates short-term results and toward acts that provide financial results that last for generations. Building on the idea that hard work alone doesn't ensure prosperity, getting out of the hard work trap demands a shift in attention from effort to structural placement. Instead of just looking at the number of hours spent or activities done to see if someone is successful, it is important to look at the processes, incentives, and roles that affect financial results. There are rules that favor some behaviors over others in every financial system, whether it's for business, investment, or starting a business. It's important to know which jobs add value over time, and which ones just trade work for quick cash in order to make a long-term plan. Strategic positioning is not about putting in more effort. It's about finding ways to use your time, energy, and money in ways that lead to outcomes that can be repeated, scaled, and grown. People may start to tell the difference between labor and leverage, effort and ownership, and predictability and exponential development by looking at these structures. Ownership, leverage, and patience are the most important things that lead to compounding financial benefits. Labor makes money right away, but it can only be done for a short period and with a lot of energy. When you own assets or systems, the value can expand on its own, using compounding and scalability in ways that labor alone can't. Patience makes sure that progress happens over a lengthy period of time instead than being used up for short-term pleasure. When these levers are used collectively, they can lead to exponential financial results, making each small contribution have a bigger influence. People who learn how to use these characteristics get benefits over the years, since little amounts of capital or strategic engagement can make far more money than the hours they put in. On the other hand, people who are limited to linear work find their returns level out no matter how hard they work or how disciplined they are. This gap is made much worse by the incentives built into financial institutions. Tax regulations favor capital gains over labor income. Investment growth benefits from compounding, while risk is generally passed to people without leverage, and capital allocation mechanisms promote early participation in scalable systems. It's important to know these roles because they show how the same work ethic can lead to quite different results depending on where and how a person engages. To align with these incentives, you need to think about your plan, not just work hard. Putting time, money, and energy into areas that the system likes in a planned way leads to results that can't be achieved by working hard alone. On the other hand, ignoring these structures keeps even the most hardworking employees stuck in linear limits, showing that financial success depends on where you are, not simply how hard you work. This gap is made much worse by the incentives built into financial institutions. Tax regulations favor capital gains over labor income. Investment growth benefits from compounding, while risk is generally passed to people without leverage. And capital allocation mechanisms promote early participation in scalable systems. It's important to know these rules because they show how the same work ethic can lead to quite different results depending on where and how a person engages. To align with these incentives, you need to think about your plan, not just work hard. Putting time, money, and energy into areas that the system likes in a planned way leads to results that can't be achieved by working hard alone. On the other hand, ignoring these structures keeps even the most hardworking employees stuck in linear limits, showing that financial success depends on where you are, not simply how hard you work. The comfort trap is a psychological factor that makes this structural barrier even worse. Working hard gives you a sense of control, social approbation, and regularity. Meeting deadlines, reaching short-term goals, and getting praise all help lower anxiety and strengthen the impression that progress is being made. But this comfort does come with a price. Relying too much on effort keeps you from seeing scalable chances that need patience, risk tolerance, and long-term thinking. People who care more about getting what they want right away than about structural leverage miss out on compounding benefits and are stuck with linear progress. It's important to be aware of this psychological bias because it helps people get out of the short-term reward feedback loop and use tactics that help them build up over time and position themselves strategically. The main point of this section is clear. To get out of the hard work trap, you need to focus on structural leverage, ownership, and patience. Working harder or longer won't work. Your financial success depends on how well you fit into systems that reward scalable engagement. By understanding the system's hidden laws and consciously aligning your time, effort, and money with these rules, you can break free from linear limits and start compounding financial results. This awareness lays the groundwork for the last step in understanding, when structural reasoning, behavioral insight, and disciplined positioning come together to build long-lasting and significant wealth. The last step is to use what you learned about structural leverage to make smart financial choices every day. You don't get rich just by making a lot of things. You get rich by choosing the right jobs and making sure they fit well with systems that add value. It is important to know the difference between linear and exponential roles. Linear jobs, like hourly work or fixed incomes, trade time for money directly and are limited by how much energy a person has. Exponential roles, such as owning assets, having a share in a firm, or making scalable investments, give you profits that grow without you having to do anything. Individuals can get the best long-term rewards by putting time, effort, and money into these exponential opportunities on purpose. This strategic posture changes financial choices from hasty, reactive actions to planned moves that add up over years and decades. To effectively grow your wealth, you need to be patient and use leverage. Investments, owning a business, and allocating capital all work on delayed feedback loops, so they don't show results right away. They take months or years to show results. Labor, on the other hand, gives you rapid rewards, but they are limited. It is very important to know how these systems work throughout time. People who aren't patient could give up on chances that seem to be taking too long to pay off. Using capital, expertise, and processes to their fullest potential increases impact while lowering the need for constant personal effort. This combination makes growth happen much faster, showing that long-term financial success is more about how well actions fit with compounding mechanisms than how hard you work. This principle is illustrated through a practical example. Consider a professional transitioning from earning income through additional hours to investing in income-generating assets such as stocks, rental properties, or scalable businesses. Over time, even minimal effort can yield substantial wealth via compounding, as these assets generate income passively. Conversely, colleagues who maintain the same work hours without leveraging these structural opportunities experience stagnation in their income progression. Their efforts yield limited returns, with any additional income directly correlated to the extra hours worked. This example demonstrates the significant, yet often unrecognized effects of system-aligned engagement, emphasizing that strategic decisions, rather than mere diligence, dictate wealth accumulation potential. Behavioral psychology is very important for keeping progress going. To stop working too hard, you need to learn to wait for rewards, accept uncertainty, and fight the social pressure that says effort is good. It's hard to move away from traditional work-centered methods because people naturally want predictable results and social approval. By being aware of these biases, people can focus on ways to acquire wealth that don't need visible work. People can stop working too much and start doing things that contribute to scalable, long-term progress by putting systemic alignment ahead of perceived diligence. In the end, knowing the hidden rules that govern wealth systems will set you free financially. Hard work alone won't get you far. You also need to choose the right roles, use leverage, be patient, and reinvest to see long-term results. Accepting these structural realities makes it easier to move from linear survival to exponential growth. People who understand these ideas know that hard work is only one part of success, and that being in the right systems is what makes money grow. This understanding lets people make decisions on purpose, moving their focus from short-term results to long-term strategic advantage. The main point is clear. Working hard meets short-term psychological needs, but it doesn't lead to long-term financial success. To get rich, you need to think about the big picture. Position yourself strategically and use delayed, compounding methods in a disciplined way. People can get out of the hard labor trap, line up with structural incentives, and achieve long-term financial success by internalizing these concepts. Strategic positioning, ownership, leverage, and patience are not optional. They're the qualities that set between those who are stuck in a cycle of effort from those who see real, long-term financial success. Now you know how to get out of the trap and why working hard alone won't make you rich. Please tell us in the comments below which money habit you would change first. Please like, share, and subscribe so you can get more tips on how to make systems work for you.